Hey guys, welcome to another live show. Welcome to another live She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys are liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and don't come for me because I already told you guys that I would be in a different environment for the next couple of days because I'm babysitting the dogs. My parents went out of town, so I'm watching Bella. I also have Bex. Bex is here, Bella's here. So we just got to do what we can do when we can do when we can do it. So yeah, here we are. So yeah, make sure you guys are smashing the likes. I actually had to turn off the air conditioning because I remember before, if I ever had the air on, you guys would be like, I can hear it, I can hear it, I can hear it. And so I had to turn it off. So, and it's like 1,000 degrees. So if your girl starts glistening a little bit, like I said, not too much on your girl, okay? Because, like, listen, it is so hot outside. That being said, welcome. And I'm super excited to be talking to you guys today because every day that I get to talk to you guys, it's amazing. Let me just check the stream and make sure that everything looks okay. Yeah, it looks okay. All right. So, on today's stream, I do want to. Samuel says your forehead is glowing. That's that's what comes with having a big forehead. Like, it's always glowing. But yeah, I want to talk about the forward situation. I've actually been online a little bit today on Twitter talking to, Arsenal fans about like the forward situation. When I woke up at 7 a.m. this morning, the timeline was in absolute tatters because Pedro Neto went to Chelsea. It happened quickly. Oh shit. Oh shit. A passenger plane crashed in Brazil? Oh shit. That's crazy. I just seen it on my timeline. I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but wow, mm, that's really scary. But yeah, talking about football after seeing that is a little strange. Whew. Um, but yeah, I think after the Pedro Neto news to Chelsea, obviously the panic kind of ensued. I do think that there's a lot of Arsenal fans that did feel like we were still interested in Pedro Neto in this window, or that that would be the option that we'd go for if we were to go for some sort of attacker. But I always kind of felt like if we wanted him, we would know that we wanted him. Like, I do think that the early reports about Arsenal having concerns about his injury record, and that also reports about Arsenal being very cognizant of availability for players that we're buying, all kind of added up to he's probably not somebody that we would go after. We've had many conversations on this channel about Pedro Neto, and it's never been a conversation about his talent. His talent is what it is. Like, his talent cannot be like refuted. The guy is very talented, not world class, not elite, nothing like that, but definitely somebody where you would assume if he's in the right environment and he could stay fit, he's going to be really, really good. And so he's 24 now. He's making the move, and obviously George Mendes has brokered a deal for him to go to Chelsea. And I think it just happened very quickly because Chelsea were willing to overpay. I don't think anybody that already has, wingers that they like rely upon, wingers that they already have that are good, and also are kind of already in a good position, are going to go out there and spend like 60 million on somebody who we have a lot of evidence of being unreliable. I remember seeing at the beginning of the window, Liverpool were interested, Man City were interested, Arsenal have long-term interest, and I'm not surprised that none of those teams have actually went for him, because not only do all three teams have players in that position, in those positions that they already can count on, but none of those three teams are going to take a risk of 60 million for somebody that they know is injury prone. So my feelings on the Neto thing is more just about like, he's a really good player, and it sucks that we don't like, he's not like, how do I explain? If we had woken up this morning and we had signed him, I think we'd look at the best case scenario of the player, and I think we'd be excited. So is it a little bit like, oh man, we missed out on something? Yeah, of course. But it's putting that to the side. Arsenal do need an attacker, and I feel like Arsenal, if they do their due diligence, they could find somebody. The problem is that, not really the problem from our for Arsenal. It's, when you're having fan conversations, it's some people don't feel like we actually need an attacker, or it's not a desperate need. It's if we could find somebody that's blank, blank, and blank. And so that's kind of the conversation I want to have with you guys today is, do we actually, like, where do you guys sit on this whole needing an attacker thing? Is it the case that we should only be looking at players that can displace our starting our starting attackers? Does it have to be somebody of like elite world class quality, and that's the only thing that makes sense? Or are there other players that can improve our team that aren't necessarily in that bracket? Like, are we overcomplicating it? Because the conversations that I've been having, it's mixed. Some people feel like we have to get an attacker in. And then there are others that feel like unless they are the perfect signing, meaning 100 million pound ESAC type signing, there's no point, because we're just going to be bringing in an average player. So make sure you guys are in the chat letting me know what you guys are thinking and feeling. I also want to remind you guys that on Sunday when we play against Leon, there is going to be a live watch along that we're going to be doing on TIFO. I will go ahead and put the link in there. Also, if you guys actually just go to this link that I'm about to put in the chat, you will see all my upcoming watch alongs on TIFO. The Lyon game is up there already, Wolves, Aston Villa, and Brighton. So all of those are already set up, which means I will be doing watch alongs for those games. So if you just click on the link that I put in the chat, you guys will be able to go there and RSVP for each, watch along that, you guys are interested in. So I just want to go ahead and put that out there to you guys, because we have so much fun on those watch alongs, y'all. We be having so much fun, and it's a smaller community. So if you are kind of like, sometimes I come into these uh streams and my comment doesn't get seen, or I don't feel like Jessica's paying me any attention, or whatever. It's a smaller community, so you have, we communicate a lot more. So I'm also going to pin it to the chat just in case you guys miss out on it. But yeah, I want to know what you guys think, because I'm not about to sit here and pretend like I don't think Pedro Neto's a good player. Like, I'm not going to cope. Like, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I never rated him or whatever. I did have major concerns about his injury record, and I didn't have him top of my list whatsoever in this window because of that. But I'm not going to pretend like he's not a good player. That being said, just because we can't get Nico Williams, just because we can't get Pedro Neto, doesn't mean that Arsenal should sell Eddie Nketiah and end their window there. I feel like Calafiori plus Marino is not a good enough window to get us to a place where we're going to be super competitive in the Champions League, and we're going to really compete against Man City for the title. I feel like I actually feel very confident saying that if we do not get an attacker, that like we're not going to win the Premier League for sure. Like, even with one, it's going to be difficult because Man City are a machine. But without one, it's not going to happen. We already know what these attackers are. I actually don't feel like there's much question around what their level is. We know what Saka is. We know he's going to get 40 goal involvements in the season. We know he's our main guy. He's our top guy. He's going to come up with big goals. But we also know Saka is also not going to be able to just do it by himself. Like, so he's going to need some assistance. We know what Gabriel Jesus is. No matter how good he looks in preseason, unless a miracle happens, he's going to be a really good forward, but is not going to be clinical. Kai Havertz going to offer something different than Gabriel Jesus, another player that doesn't necessarily give you that X factor, that edge, really at the top end, right? Martinelli, good player, going to score goals. Not sure whether or not what he's really going to look like this season. I think his preseason has been mixed, but we kind of know what he is. Trossard, we know what he is. Like, there's no real like questions about what the level of this group is. And to be honest, I think we've pretty much exhausted what they can do. They're a really, really good group of attackers, but in terms of like that elite talent and or that X factor, we know we're lacking. I was actually going through it earlier, because somebody was like, well, Man City wasn't a big deal because it's Man City, we got to draw. And I'm like, Man City is actually not top of my list of games that, I would, look at when trying to convince somebody that we need an attacker. It's West Ham at home, Aston Villa at home, Aston Villa away, Newcastle away, Liverpool at home in the FA Cup. Those games are the ones that I feel like as a team that's supposed to be super competitive, trying to win the league, we didn't score any goals in those games and did not look like scoring either. Either we missed very obvious chances or we didn't look like scoring at all. And I don't feel like you can say the same about Manchester City. I don't think you can even say the same about Liverpool, that there were at least 7 games in a single season where they did not score a goal, you know? And so it's not just about the Man City game, that is a concern. I think at this stage, we should feel like we're going to score a goal against Manchester City. I don't think we should be as toothless as we are. I do think that there two things can be true at once, that you don't have to beat Manchester City at the Etihad to win the league. I know that that narrative is continuously always going around that Arsenal would have won the league if they would have just beat Manchester City at the Etihad. I don't think that's necessarily the only thing, right? And I don't necessarily feel like you have to do that in order to win the league. But I also think that, like, again, two things can be true, that we didn't have to beat Manchester City at the Etihad to win the league, but the the toothlessness that we had at the Etihad as a team that's supposed to be fighting against Manchester City for the league is concerning, especially when it's not every team. Most teams get blown out by Manchester City, but Villa don't look toothless against Manchester City. Newcastle don't look toothless against Manchester City. Chelsea don't look toothless against Manchester City. Man United don't look toothless. Liverpool don't look toothless. We look toothless against them more than once. I mean, like we won the game at home, but in reality, we didn't really attack well. But that's not even the meat of my problem. The meat of my problem is that there's 7 games or so that we didn't score. And so we need an attacker, period. Like we have Nketiah and Nelson in our team. Like our attack is not what people think it is. I think our defense is like, I won't say significantly better, but if we could be the attacking version of our defense, we'd be the best team on the planet, but we have a ways to go to be that. So we need an attacker. Now, there are people that are saying that there's no options. I don't necessarily believe that because I don't actually feel like we need to bring in, you know, people's version of Holland to improve what we have already because we have 2 number 9s that are not clinical. We have 1 winger that we know is top, top, top quality. We have Trossard, who we know is spotty but scores goals. There are question marks, I think, around Martinelli. So and then we have Nketiah and Nelson. So it's really not like we're sitting there with like all these like A plus 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 attackers. So do we actually need like a Holland like striker to take us to the next level? Or can we just improve upon Nelson and Nketiah with one player that is just closer to our starting 11 that actually offers maybe some pace or some dribbling or I don't know, goals. What do you guys think? Nikeshi says Arteta is a very defensive manager. Strikers are always going to have games they struggle in. Um, Dennis says Kingsley Coman is right there. My problem with Kingsley Coman is he's injury prone as well. Like, I do think that Arsenal need to steer clear of players that have a very, you know, like obvious injury record. Like, we have too many players already that are always kind of like in and out of the team. And so I don't think Kingsley Coman is necessarily the answer to our problems. That being said, if you put Kingsley Coman in this team and he could at least put together 20 games, that is better than what we have with Nelson and Nketiah, you know? So, yeah, Marginal Eye says Jesus is never going to be better than a 15 Premier League goal a season player. And the thing is if you put his 15 goals together with Kai Havertz, let's say Kai Havertz gets 15 goals this season, you can put that together and that's fine. We are going to score like 90 something goals this season, like we did last season. And like I think we almost did it the season prior. Our problem is that there are too many games where guys look like they've never kicked a ball before, where they just look so bereft of any sort of like confidence in front of goal. And to me, that's about having a certain type of player in your team, having X factor in your team. So I agree with you. Jesus is probably only going to score them 15 goals. And that's kind of like okay. Kai Havertz only being able to score like, let's say 15 goals, okay. But you have to underpin those two players with somebody that you can at least bring off of the bench in games where they're not able to score. Let's say like when we're playing against Bayern at the Allianz Arena, none of our attackers look like they can score a goal. But if we could have brought somebody off of the bench that has a little bit of that X factor, maybe we would have done a little bit better. So um yeah, you can have these types of players in your team that are kind of more about like the group rather than the individual, but you still have to have like one guy in there that is not afraid to shoot, you know? So yeah, it's crazy. Jordan Hill says, plus Jesus says he's fully healthy now. So I think we can expect more from him. If he's back to himself from the first season with us, then he'll definitely be very good this season. That's fine. But even if he is the same player that he was for those first 4 months at Arsenal, I feel like people have like a very like rose tinted glasses of those first 4 months with Jesus now. Like I'll talk out of both sides of my mouth here. Those first 4 months of Gabriel Jesus at Arsenal was some of the best forward play that I've seen from an Arsenal player since Alexis Sanchez. But he also went through a really bad goal drought after the Tottenham game. And the Tottenham game, I believe, was in either late October or early November, which was a whole month until we went to the World Cup and he got injured. So he still, even in really good form, went through a really bad goal drought. So, you know, even if he goes back to those first 4 months, that doesn't mean that we're getting back a player that has X factor. That doesn't mean we're getting back a player that is going to score in big games. That doesn't mean we're getting back a player that's going to get us closer to City. So Jesus being good or bad is really inconsequential to what we still need to do because even at his best, it's still not enough. So I feel like there's just like a lot of, well, like a new signing, but even if he's as good as he's ever been, he's still going to miss those chances. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. It's not enough. It wasn't enough the first season. It's not going to be enough. It's just not going to be. Sorry. Like when we go to the Etihad, is a fit firing Jesus going to score against Man City? I don't think so. You know, I don't know what to tell you. Errol says Jokeris is the man that we need, I think, or Tony from Brentford. Um, yeah, I don't know about Tony. Um, Yeah. I mean, I don't know about Tony. Is he somebody that you could bring off of the bench and would probably get a goal? Probably. But I have the same issue with Tony that I have with our other strikers. Maybe it's just the way that he plays for Brentford, but we talked a lot about Tony at the back end of last season. He spends a lot of time outside of the box. And so I'm not sure they necessarily solves our problems. But he is a goal scorer. So yeah. Nico says we need to go out and get Kvaratskhelia if we don't get a striker that's a needle mover. I think we need a needle mover. Like, I don't think we need somebody that's gonna cost us 100 million. I think we just need someone who I genuinely think we overrate the individual talent of our attackers a lot. Like, this is gonna sound so mean. Nketiah and Nelson are just, like, very, very average. If you brought in a player of, let's say, like, a Neto that's not injured, a Nico Williams, you know, even a, Desiree Doué, watch him playing for France today, we would be so much better, like, literally Nelson and Nketiah add nothing to the bottom line, so yeah, I feel like we're overthinking it. We're like, we need to go buy Kvaratskhelia. We need to go throw the bag at Osimhen. We need to go, spend 100 million on so and so. I mean, I don't even want Rafinha, but genuinely adding him and getting rid of Nelson and Nketiah would put us on that would help us a lot. Like, Liverpool and City don't have players like Nketiah and Reece Nelson in their side. Arsenal fans are acting like they didn't want Alvarez. They were speaking about Alvarez like he was Nketiah. They genuinely don't have a good reading on what the level of our attackers actually is. We have two guys in our attacking group right now that are probably lower half Premier League and championship level player. I think Nketiah could play for a Premier League side. I think Nelson is closer to like the championship level, like a team that's coming up. Like Liverpool and freaking City don't have any types of players like that. So genuinely, like I don't even want these players, but a Rafinha, but a Sane, like a Coman, those guys, if you just drop them on our team, we would be better. It doesn't even have to be fucking Kvaratskhelia. It doesn't, because that's how. I need to stop. Because if I don't want to, because these are still professional footballers that we're talking about. So I'm really not trying, I'm trying not to shit on them so badly, because I do feel like sometimes we go too far or I go too far. But it, I don't think people realize how low those players are, like how far away they are from being at our level, you know? So yeah. Nuances of Fate says Nelson Eddie. Eddie couldn't cut it at League One level. Nelson is very overrated by our fan base. Very overrated by our fan base. Now, like Nketiah is on the like edges of about to go to Marseille for 30 million euros. Ain't nobody paying 30 million euros for Nelson. Like, as much as we like people don't like Eddie, Nelson offers less than Eddie, in my opinion, because he doesn't even score goals against bad teams. No, like Nketiah can score goals against bad teams. He's done it a lot for Arsenal. He can't score goals against the big teams, but he can score goals against bad teams. Nelson doesn't even score goals against bad teams. So I actually disagree. I think Nelson gets away with it because his tech looks better, because he looks better on the ball, because he scored one goal against Bournemouth. But genuinely, we could only probably get 8 to 10 million, max 15 for Reece Nelson. But we probably will get 30 million euros, which is like, let's say 25 million euros or 25 million pounds for Eddie. Like, Nelson is like lower than Eddie to me on the totem pole. Like, when's the last time Nelson scored a goal? So yeah. Nico says Nelson better than Nketiah, but both are not at the level. Aaron said Nketiah scored big goals against Chelsea and United. This is what I'm saying. And you guys know, people think I'm Eddie's biggest hater, but I'm not even like, I'm not going to like Reece Nelson played against Liverpool in the FA Cup and couldn't score a goal. It's just Nelson's last goal, like legitimate goal, might have been against Brentford in the cup. But, like, Eddie at least has scored, like you guys said, against Chelsea and United. He's had a hat trick against Sheffield, like, Nelson gets away with it because he's for some reason, the fan base still feels like he's this guy that, like, was number 1 from the academy. Like, and bruh. Like, I mean, it's basically like, uh, you know, it's not really that much it's, like, not that much between them, like, they both need to go, but I really think people over they Nelson did a couple of good little, like, turns and runs in preseason, and people were like, "He's good enough to be Saka's backup, see?" And I was like, "Oh my god, shoot me." Like, seriously, how many more years are we gonna do this? Like, it's fucking crazy. So, why are people talking about Madrid, though? Like, come on. Like, Mudryk, I think, like, the people are just grasping now. They're like, "Okay, well, if Chelsea are getting Neto, then they're gonna be okay with losing Mudryk, and then we can go back in." Mudryk, I don't really want anybody that's gonna need therapy and, like, rehabilitation coming from Chelsea because he doesn't like, I agree with some like, I feel like maybe I think I'm in the minority here. It feels like if Mudryk had come to Arsenal, he would be a much different player than the player that he is at Chelsea because there is tangible evidence from loads of players, not just Mudryk, loads of players that when they come to Chelsea, they're a good player. They go to Chelsea, they're terrible. And then when they leave Chelsea, they look good again. So their environment is not environmenting. So no, would he have been perfect? No, he still would have been raw, but he would have been in an environment with a coach that would have known how to coach him. No, like not as much pressure because he would have had like Martinelli and like another player out there that would play in that position, so he wouldn't feel like all that pressure. That being said, he's ruined now. Like he's ruined now. Like whatever talent was there is like probably way down now. Like I just feel like if we were gonna get him, we needed to get him from, um what team did he come from? I can't remember what the team was called. My brain is gone, but we had to get him from there. Now we're gonna be overpaying or, like, we're gonna have to, because he's probably was worth what Brentford wanted for him the summer prior to the January that he went to Chelsea. They offered 30 million. That is probably what he's worth. He was an up and coming, needed some fixing, some development type of player. And he went for a talent that's already done at like 90 million. So, yeah, I just feel like Chelsea would ask us for some stupid ass number. They're not going to sell him to us for 30 million. They're going to ask for 60, 70 million. So I just feel like we shouldn't be like Chelsea need to deal with the repercussions of their poor buying, and the only way that they can do that is if people do not want to buy their assets, and so we need to stop bailing them out. You know, so that's the main reason why I wouldn't want Madrid. The main reason why I wouldn't want Madrid is not because I don't think that he would have been a different player for us, but you're letting Chelsea off the hook. We would have to spend a lot on him, and he would need rehab, just like Kai. And it took Kai a long time to get to looking like a decent player. You know what I'm saying? So for me, it's done. It's done. We had to get him when when we originally wanted him. You know, um, Sliced Bread says, let's be real. If Arsenal have 60, 70 million to spend on Mudryk, they should activate that Nico Williams release clause. And I think Sliced Bread makes a really, really good point. How much money do Arsenal actually have to bring in an attacker? Which, I feel like I think we went into this window with a lot less than people thought that we did. We had to pay for Raya and make him permanent, which I think people forget. Then we got like 27 million or something like that. Plus, the add-ons, but the add-ons are like for him, like Emil achieving things. So the base is 27 for Emil. And we used like what 37 million or something like that to get Calafiori. So depending on how much we started with, I don't actually know if what do we need to sell Nketiah for a certain amount in order to bring Marino in? Is that why, we're dealing with the structure of the deal with Real Sociedad really slowly and trying to kind of, structure things in a way where we don't trigger FFP because we actually can't sell Nketiah for as much as we wanted to, or we're not able to sell Nelson. We may not actually have anything left over to buy an attacker. So, you know, don't be surprised if we get the Arsenal are okay with what they got, report after we buy Marino, you know? Like I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. The way that we're taking a lot of time with the Marino deal. When we came back to the table for the Nketiah deal, now it's looking like a loan with an obligation. So for those of you guys who want to know what's going on with Nketiah, I'm gonna go with what Ornstein said. Um, Arsenal are ready to sanction Nketiah's exit to Marseille. Proposed deal is a season-long loan with a buy obligation in the region of 30 million euros. So, personal terms already agreed. Ball now in Marseille's court to decide if they proceed or not. So, I mean, essentially, Arsenal came back to the table with the tail tucked between their legs, because maybe they didn't have teams coming for Eddie like the way that they thought, or they need a little bit more to get the Marino deal done. I don't actually know, but I'm not 100% sure that we have the money that we think we have for this attacker. If we thought we were going to sell more, so. Um, Let's see. What did Fabrizio say about it? Let me see if I can find it. Mm. Yeah, looks like the most recent thing that he said is negotiations restart, but he didn't say anything else. I think Fabrice Hawkins also said something, so let me go back to what he said. Um, Fabrice Hawkins said, this was 9 hours ago, that to date, Marseille is not ready to pay 30 million euros for Nketiah. Negotiations between Arsenal and Marseille continue. So even the 30 million euros that Ornstein was talking about may actually not come to fruition. And Marseille turned to Eddie Nketiah, for whom Arsenal have reopened the door. Gunners are asking for about 25 million euros. So maybe it ends up being around 25 million euros. But if it's a loan with an obligation, that would also mean that we wouldn't get the money up front, so which would probably impact our ability to buy someone, in this window. So we'll see. Or maybe they're hiding some money, you know, maybe they're hiding some money. So let's see. Real Sociedad are in emergency mode and now will offer Zubamindi and Marino contracts that will make them the highest players in the team. However, it seems like it's not a matter of money for the players. Can we just get this done? I'm tired, bro. Like, why can't we just get this done, man? Like, just let us go, please. you know? Um, So yeah. There are some perspective says, I don't think it is hiding money. I think it is holding it back and making Edu prove he can sell effectively as well. We talked about that KSE weren't trying to give him a bunch of money up front. Um, so yeah. MM says Real Sociedad are offering Moreno a contract of the highest paid player at the club. I just think this should be kind of like done already, like all this offering new contracts and stuff like that, we should be negotiating to get him out of there quickly, like now. Um, and they're still offering contracts, but they would be fucked. Like Real Sociedad, genuinely, if they lose both of their starting midfielders, they're fucked. Like this late in the window, So I can see them like doing it, but it's like, what's just get it done. Like this is long, man. Like, come on, you know. Um, Let's just do it. Because this is like something that we need a midfielder, but like we still have other things that we can potentially be doing. So, and we're like a one deal at a time type thing. So until Marino is done, nothing is going to happen on an attacker if we do decide to do it. So it's kind of like, bro, this is long. Like, um, we should be like beyond this now, if we're honest. So, yeah. Nico says, at least all the accountants online will be happy. We penny pinching for Marino. I do think that like Marino will get done. It's just taking forever because Real Sociedad are afraid to lose their players. And, we just take a long time to get deals done, and really because we don't want to overpay, it always takes us a long time because we have to really haggle things down. So it'll probably get done, but because I like that report was saying, um, it's not about the money to them. And, for their perspective, like this is probably Marino's last big move. He's 28 years old. So moving to Arsenal, going back to the Premier League, playing for a Champions League team, a team that's actually competing for the Premier League. This is it. So I actually am not worried about this contract for him. I think that's more of a thing for Zubamendi because he's so he's so committed to that club in that area. But I think it'll get done for us. But I'm just like kind of tired of hearing about it. Like, yeah, I'm tired of hearing about it. To be honest, to be honest. Let's see. Blaze says people need to relax. The Marino deal will be done. Um, The Arsenal perspective says, "You're so right, Jess. We always seem to be one deal at a time." I think I read something about it that Arsenal, the way that Edu works, is one deal at a time, one in, one out. So one in, one out. And that's pretty much how we've done this window. Things are taking a while because we also don't want to overpay. And so, I mean, if we ended up getting Marino for a lot less, that'd be great. Because originally we were talking about 21 million, now it's like 30. So we can get it for less, it's fine. But let's just go ahead and get it done. But back to the attacker, I think we have to get one. I actually just don't think we can go into next season with hopes of winning the league with the same group of attackers that we had last season, but that could be being dramatic. Burmy Gunner says, we need to adopt Chelsea's approach, pace of the deal, Neto done and dusted. The only way that happens, Burmy, is if you overpay. Wolves probably could not like believe that somebody came in with 60 million for Neto with his injury record. So of course the deal went through fast. If you overpay, the deal gets done fast, like what happened with Havertz. That deal was the fastest deal. Actually, the two deals that we did with Chelsea, the Jorginho deal and the Kai Havertz deal, were the fastest deals we've ever done. Because not real for Jorginho, it was a little bit different because I think they couldn't believe that Arsenal really wanted to come in for him and were willing to pay anything for him. But Kai, we gave them 65 million for a player that we probably should have only paid about 40 million for. So of course the deal goes faster. And I think that, you know, if you're asking the club to overpay to get deals done quickly, I don't know if that's the right thing to do. Um, but mostly the Neto deal got done quickly because they overpaid, and that's how things get done quickly. If you don't haggle, you don't have to haggle, or you don't have to try to negotiate, deals get done a lot quicker. Shamaria says it seems like Neto was done quickly, but apparently it was kept under wraps. I think Chelsea had 2 bids rejected from Wolves beforehand. I didn't read anything like that. So yeah. Um, let's see. Iran says 60 million per pure profit and freed wages for ESR and Eddie. Hopefully the Eddie thing just needs to go ahead and get done. Like, they say negotiations, negotiations. Hopefully it should be done by like next week. Like get Marino done, get Eddie out of here, and then see where we go from there. It'd be really nice if we could get, because Reese Nelson, we didn't talk about this, but Reese Nelson didn't play at all against um Leverkusen. So maybe there's something we don't know about because usually players don't play. Um, I mean, Reese Nelson had been getting a lot of playing time. Um, damn, what y'all farted? Shit. Oh God. Do y'all need a boo boo? One of them farted. It is seen. Oh God. Bruh. Bella, I know that was you. Woo. But yeah, like maybe there's something we don't know about Reese Nelson because Reese Nelson was playing like quite a bit throughout preseason in America, so maybe there is some negotiations happening. We just don't know about it. Nobody asked because like they asked about Emil because people cared about that and they knew we were negotiating with Fulham, but like literally no one gave a fuck that Nelson didn't play like anything. He didn't. Do you guys remember? Like he didn't play at all, so it was Fabio and Saka. So yeah. Lee says, wouldn't Bournemouth or Wolves need a forward? Maybe they're interested in Eddie or Reese. Reese Nelson, I don't know. Because I think Bournemouth are interested in Eddie. So let's see what happens with that. But I think like Wolves have already gotten somebody that they're interested in. Like, it came out right after the Neto news came out, so that they were interested in someone else, so and that's the thing, it's clubs are getting smarter. The Wolves, the Bournemouths, the, Crystal Palaces, they're getting smarter. They're recruiting talented young players from other leagues, or really talented players from the championship, and they're steering clear of having to pay 20-25 million for 90,000 pounds per week Reese Nelson, who's not very good. So that's the another problem that we have is those mid-table teams are getting a lot smarter with the way that they recruit. They're not just taking our leftovers anymore because the wages are too high. They're going to other leagues and buying players that they know that when they're ready to sell, they'll be able to sell these players for triple what they paid for them, maybe even quadruple what they paid for them. So that's one of our bigger issues with getting rid of somebody like Reese Nelson is we put him on crazy wages and he's so average, so he's a hard sell. He's a hard sell. I swear to y'all that are laughing, the way that that smelled, I had to look down because I was like, did somebody boo boo in here? Damn, steak. David Ball said, yeah, Wolves want a forward from Ajax. See, they're smarter. They're really like so much smarter now, which is a problem for, us. If you put your average players on big wages, this is what you kind of get. Um, Bushy says, we agree we need a striker, but we cannot move like Chelsea or United. Our squad is miles ahead of all them. They're trying to catch up to us. Be patient, guys. But in our waiting around to be patient and find the perfect person and all this kind of stuff, those teams are going to eventually catch up to us. The attacker conversation that we're having, Bushy, is not one that we haven't had before. This is not something that, first of all, we don't have the same type of attacking makeup as like Man City and Liverpool do. They don't have as much dead wood and players that they can't rely upon to perform at a high level when their like number one people are not available. When you look at their groups of attackers, they don't have Reese Nelsons and Nketiahs. So I think we think we're in this position where, oh, we can, we have to wait for an Isak. We have to wait for our Holland. That's all we should be adding at this point. If they're not a world-class player, then, or somebody that's like the top elite, then we shouldn't be getting them because like Man City wouldn't just bring in anybody, but they don't have Reece Nelsons and Nketiahs. They don't have two strikers that are not clinical. They don't have those problems. They don't go, they don't play against Aston Villa and get shut out twice. They don't go to Newcastle and don't score goals. They don't have the same problems as us. They're not toothless in Champions League. So our attacking problems are not the same as those teams. So when we do that whole thing about like we should only be bringing in elite talent now, that doesn't apply to us when we're talking about our attack. We're still behind. So while other teams are catching up to us, we're stagnating because I mean, how long have we been asking for Arsenal to bring in a top quality attacker or somebody at least with more pace or clinical finishing, good 1v1 dribbler, just somebody that is on maybe on the same level as Saka and Martinelli. We've been asking for that for time now. This is not the first window. Last window we asked for it, and no shade, I like him now. We ended up with Kai Havertz. He doesn't really fill any of those roles, So I think we think we're in a position that we're not in. And so I said this the other day. I feel like our attacking group on paper is not like it's definitely not as good as Man City's. It's not as good as Liverpool's, and it'll be questionable at the end of the window, depending on what other people do and what we do, if it's top four. I just don't think that our attackers are what people think they are. The group, we put a lot of pressure on Saka, a lot, So let's see where we end up. John Donut says, "Yeah, we're ahead, guys, but we can't take that for granted. Chelsea and Man United will eventually get their shit together. Not this season, but a season or two, they could be back." Jordan Hill says, "I think the problem is that people still think we're in the underdog rebuilding transition phase and not the phase of adding champion caliber players." Listen, I, I, t- I think we're in between that phase, the rebuilding and the champion caliber players. I think we're still in between that. Because we have done a lot of rebuilding, but we've still left major gaps in our team that Arteta's been able to paper over the cracks with because he's such a good manager. But there's still the gaps that always keep us from actually winning the trophy. It's the gaps that we leave that are the reasons why we don't get far in cups. It's the gaps that we leave that is why we're toothless against Man City. It's before we even start thinking about getting Isak, it would not hurt us to have a winger that is similar to, if not close to, Saka and Martinelli. We haven't even done that yet. But people are talking about wait for Isak, wait for Isak. I'm like, when we're waiting for Isak, we could be bringing in some of these other players and at least getting our group better because it's not there. It's not there with Marino coming in midfield and Ethan. Ethan is saving us, by the way. Ethan is saving us. That attacking midfielder that we were probably hoping that Fabio was going to be, that he's not living up to, that's being saved by Ethan. Marino coming in and bringing in that level of a number 8, that's going to help our midfield group. Declan, Odegaard, we know what they are. They're top quality. I still have questions about our midfield group, but that group is a lot closer to where it needs to be. The attack needs work. The attack needs work. It needs work. It needs work. The Arsenal perspective says, Jez, I promise you that some of our fan base are well aware, like you, that our attacking group is mid. On average, it is mid. I just like I don't because I know that somebody's gonna be like, oh my god, she thinks that they're shit. And that's not what I'm saying. I just a lot of what we're is good about our team is not what's coming from the attack. Like we're kind of like the opposite of Liverpool in that way. Everything that's good about Liverpool is their ability to score goals against everybody, and they're always dangerous. So even if they have flaws in midfield and flaws at the back, they can overcompensate with their attack because they don't ever look toothless, ever. We're the opposite. We Everything that's really good about us is our defensive solidity, our commitment to the shape and pressing and all that stuff, our off the ball work, the level of talent that we have at the back. For fuck's sake, we have Gabrielle and Saliba already. We added Timber last season, and now he's going to be able to play this season. We have White. We just added Calafiori. We have Tommy, who, if he was fit, would start for almost every single Premier League side except for maybe the top like three or four. We have Zinchenko, who is bad defensively, but like we know what he is. We like everything that's good about Arsenal is about what's going on at the back. But as you creep forward, we start to look a lot less impressive. So we're the opposite of them. City is a combination of Liverpool's attack and our defense. And that's why they win all the time. So the only way that we're going to be able to match them is if we start getting really fucking real about our attack. I said this the other day. There are players that play on lesser sides that walk into our attack. But you can't say the same for City. Ollie Watkins doesn't walk into City's attack, but he right into ours. Like, you know what I'm saying? So, but what I'm not saying is that our attackers are shit. That's not what I'm saying. I rate them. I think a lot, like especially Saka, I think is top quality. Top 5 in his position. So I'm not saying that our attackers are not good. Martinelli, not on Saka's level, but maybe a couple of steps below that. Trossard is a really, really good squad player. My questions really are with the two that we've been talking about, Nelson and Nketiah. They shouldn't be anywhere near the team. And then can we count on Jesus and Havertz to come up with big goals in games where they weren't able to up with them over the last 2 seasons? Those are one of my questions. Have we answered those questions? And I don't think we have, so it's not, to me, it's I don't feel like that's in like a hyperbolic or like a crazy thing to say, but I feel bad saying it because I feel like people are hearing that they're shit, and that's not what I'm saying. But do I think our attack is better than Liverpool's or on the same level as Liverpool's or City's? No, I don't. Not the individuals. No, I don't. I think Arteta's coaching does a lot of heavy lifting, and our defense does a lot of heavy lifting. That's what I think. So, what do you guys think? Let's see. Um, Also, I saw a really good tweet from somebody, and I don't. Um, One of y'all needs to go outside and go use the bathroom. Whew. Um, but yeah, I think um I saw a tweet and somebody said that like Bayern, I think they say Bayern, Real Madrid, and whew, um and another team I can't remember buy attackers every season. They're constantly keeping their attacking ranks fresh. And I do think that that is a blind spot with Arsenal. I do think that we keep the same group too long, and that it doesn't have to always be an 100 million pound signing or nothing. We could bring in either highly talented, like younger players that are going to grow into being something special, um, or like the Netos or those types of guys, and improve what we have. But keeping Nelson and Nketiah for like they've been around the whole time. Like Arteta's been a manager at Arsenal, and even longer before that, and they're still heavily relied upon in this group. That's all I'm saying. So, who these dogs? Somebody is farting. Woo! MM says, I'm a Martinelli fan, but this preseason I haven't seen a significant improvement to be a partner with Saka. Um, yeah, I think Martinelli's had a mixed preseason, just like he had a mixed preseason the season prior. And so I don't think preseason means everything, but I don't think it means nothing. Um, we'll see. If we get Marino over the line and Calafiori, comes in, and plays at that left back position, which he will. If Martinelli's form improves, there's been a lot made of the left half space not working for him. He did score those 15 goals. Um, non-penalty goals, by the way, that's nothing to turn your nose up at. And 15 non-penalty goals is better than a lot of top quality attacker seasons ever. But it only happened once, and the other seasons on either side of that season, he was impacted by injury, so I always keep that in mind that the season prior, Martinelli was sharing that position with Emil. And then this past season, like before this current season that's coming up, he had quite a few injuries at the beginning and he never really got going. That being said, I do feel like Saka's on another level than him. And I feel like it would be easier to get somebody just as good, if not better than Martinelli than it would be Saka. And so, whenever I look at upgrading the front positions, I do think left wing always kind of stands out in my mind as an area that could be improved. But if Martinelli were to go back to the player that he was the season prior, 2022, 2023, I don't think I'd have those same feelings, So Martinelli is very much so a question mark in my mind right now. He could either be the version that we've seen, in 2023, 2024, or he could become the 15 non-penalty goal guy again. If he's not the 15 non-penalty goal guy, then that's an area of improvement as far as I'm concerned. And so I know a lot of people put a lot of stock in Martinelli being better than Saka or, more talented or something, but he's not really living up to that now. So let's see if the left half space dynamic helps him. I think it all depends on how we play. First day of the season, my my guess is that, the team that pretty much started against, um, Leverkusen will start that game. I think we're building the team that Arteta's gonna go with starting out the season. Jesus will start, Trossard will start, Havertz will start, Zinchenko will start. That group works together, you know? Trossard and Havertz works together. Whether you like it or not, it does. It always has. It worked in preseason last season. It worked at the back end of last season. It works now. So if that's what we start with, Martinelli won't start. But if we change things and Havertz goes up front and Marino comes in at left center mid, then maybe that works out better for him. So it's all about dynamics and, combinations and stuff like that. But Arteta either is going to build that side around Martinelli or he's not. And if he doesn't, and he opts for this more like, oh, well, if we play this player goes together, this player, then I would start to question, which I already do, whether or not Arteta really rates Martinelli because he'd never not build the right hand side around Saka. Never. The right side dynamics are built for Saka. The left side, I don't know what to tell you. Bully says Martinelli's ceiling is so high, but he's in the wrong position. Center forward is the perfect position for him. Arteta's only really tried him there a couple times and then never went back to it. So, I mean, I think another manager would play him there and it would work for him, but we'd have to play in a completely different way. The way that we play really doesn't suit Martinelli as a center forward because he's so running behind, and our center forward is such a facilitator. And he doesn't really have that ability. So unless you're gonna play to feed your center forward, which we don't play that way, we don't feed our center forwards are facilitators, then I don't see it working out for him. Just like Aubameyang. Aubameyang was shunted out to the wing by Mikel and Lacazette played center forward. So yeah, I don't think we'll see it under Mikel, to be honest, but, um, I do think his skill set under the right manager, he would be put into center forward. I think he would do okay there. Blaze says Martinelli needs to step up this season. Some Arsenal fans protect him and blame someone when he has bad games, but still slander Trossard, who had a better last season than Martinelli. Um, you can never make me hate Trossard. I, I don't care about shit. People, oh, did you see what a bad game he had? And show me the goals. Show me the goals. When I watched the season review like a couple weeks ago, the amount of goals that Trossard scored last season, big goals. Our season would have been ass if some of those goals that he scored, he did not score. Seriously. So when we're looking at somebody like Trossard, and this is another reason why I do feel like you need to look at the attack because Trossard is somebody that I think if he played less minutes, and let's say that Trossard was in the Nelson position, let's say that he was the Nelson in this group, maybe the third option, like instead of the second option that ended up being escalated to the starter because the starter was not playing well. Then I think like the players would or the fans would love Trossard a lot more because there would be less of those games where he was kind of like bad outside of everything that's scoring goals. But because we had to play him so much, we had to see more of that and it was frustrating. But this is why I feel like Trossard should be lower down the pecking order, but he's higher because our other attackers are not good enough. Eddie and Nelson are like non-factors, so just throw them away. Jesus was injured all last season, plus a head case, and Martinelli was nowhere to be found. So Trossard is escalated to a bigger person in the squad than he probably should be, and we're frustrated by it. I feel very similarly about Jorginho. Jorginho should not be playing as much as he does because he's playing a bigger role. We have to see more of his flaws. And so instead of being somebody that we see more sparingly, so we see less of his flaws, we see more because the players around him that are supposed to be playing that position are not doing what they're supposed to, and or we have not recruited properly to make it so we don't have to see Jorginho as much. Jorginho and Trossard should be the like Nelson and El Neni of this group. They should be better versions of those players, but they have to start so much more because our squad building in those positions have not been good enough. And we have to rely upon them too much. They're good players, but the fact that they played so much last season is less like it's not a them problem. It's well, why are they playing so much? Because Martinelli wasn't good, because Jesus was nowhere to be found, because Nelson and Nketiah are not good enough. So if we had better players let's say we replace Nketiah with a good striker, let's say we replace Nelson with a good winger, then Trossard would be further down that pecking order. And nobody would be bitching about them games that he can't trap a ball. Because I see them games, but as long as he's scoring goals, and he's saving us from, like, falling down falling down the table, you can never make me hate him. You can never make me hate him. You guys, we go out of the Champions League sad as fuck if he doesn't score those goals. Like, seriously. Like, we should not have to rely upon him as much as we do, but we do because the other players are just it is what it is. Hyphy says Trossard is a baller. Some of his goals were from the bench, especially in the beginning of the season. When Trossard first came in, I was so surprised at how good he was. Not because I hadn't seen him at Brighton, but it's different when they're playing for you. I think people forget his first half, like that first half season, he was so good. He didn't score as many goals, but he had like one goal and like 8 assists. He was so good. I remember we played against Fulham, remember like back when we could actually beat Fulham, and we beat them 3-0. It was one of my favorite games under Mikel Arteta. We wore the black. And like Saliba was so good in that game. Our attack was flowing so good. We scored 3 goals in the first half and it was over before it even started. And Trossard was magnificent in that game. Magnificent. This was after, like, obviously Jesus had gotten injured. And so Trossard is good in smaller doses. The more you have to rely upon him, the more his flaws come out. And so he's not supposed to be a starter for Arsenal, but he is you know, but he shouldn't be, you know? Um, really like Trossard. Really like Trossard. MM says Bossard is huge value, especially with his experience. I like him a lot. Shamaria says our fans really don't rate Trossard, and it's weird because he's one of our most clutch players. I think some people also just don't like him because he's playing in Martinelli's spot, and then it illuminates the fact that maybe the left half space isn't as bad as they were thinking, and maybe it might be Martinelli, so they take it out on Trossard. I think some people just get frustrated because his performances aren't always the cleanest, but you can never make me hate him, ever. Some of his goals, if he doesn't score those, ain't nobody scoring those. Because some of our players don't shoot, like, seriously. Come on now. Shamaria says, "Yeah, I think he got a hat trick of assists." Like, the way other teams or other, like, rivals speak about Trossard, they would love to have a Trossard in their team. They talk like, Man United fans and Chelsea fans always talk about Trossard. They're like, "I don't know why Arsenal fans don't like him. He's so good, he's so clutch." So every big team has a player like Trossard in their team, but there's better players in front of them or in front of him, and there should be, so Trossard's having, like, his game against, Leverkusen was really good. I do think he'll start the season. Do you think he'll start the season, especially if Havertz starts at left center mid, which I think is a big possibility. Well, let's see what we do against Lyon. Um, but I just I think Arteta's gonna do the Jesus thing and Zinchenko starting the season, you know. So we'll see. We'll see. Um, let's see. Um, uh, Adeg Boyega. I tried. I tried. Jess, so what's the way forward if Edu and Arteta is I don't know. I don't know exactly what you're asking, but I'm hoping from now until the end of the transfer window, we do bring in an attacker. I hope that they are talking to somebody and they're just keeping it under wraps. I hope that we're being serious. Because they've seen that with, you know, I think they know what their midfield options are going to be like. They know they're going to have, Partey, Jorginho, and Rice. They know they're going to have, Ethan now, which I hope that they use. They know they have Odegaard. They're bringing in Marino, so that's 6 players that I do think are probably good. They're just about good enough to do what we want to do. Fabio being moved to the wing, hopefully that and Nelson has shown them that, like, they need somebody. Like, Fabio cannot stand in for Saka. He can't, and we don't have anybody else that can do that role. So hopefully they're looking for someone. Um, and what's the way forward if Edu decides not to sign a striker? It all depends on how much that, like, affects the season. You know, this is why, like, when we last summer was a really disappointing window to me, mostly because we still didn't address the main things, or we didn't address 2 things, Xhaka leaving and an attacker. And we're still having those same problems. And those things are, like, it's starting to become, like, very obvious that, like, maybe if we had actually brought in a left center mid, we wouldn't have started off last season so roughly because, we know the Kai Havertz experiment didn't really work. It made things a little bit convoluted. It was hard. And we dropped a lot of points in this beginning half of the season, made it difficult for us, or if we had had another attacker that could have scored, against Aston Villa or whatever. So it all depends on how it affects the season. I could be totally wrong and we go to another level and we don't have any of these problems this season and we're perfect, and it's fine. I could be totally wrong. But I think we're going to see some similar problems that we saw the last 2 seasons. So it all depends, but how many seasons can you go without winning a trophy? And that's the other reason why I feel like it can't just be that we only buy an attacker if they're going to, you know, guarantee that we win the league. We can only buy an attacker if it's Isak or, whatever. that perfect elite attacker because there's more than just the Premier League to fight for. We know that trying to win the Premier League is really hard against Man City. So even just improving your attackers to the point where you don't have to play Nketiahs and Nelsons in the cups. So we can actually get to the next rounds. We can actually play our better players in the further rounds will help us get further in like cup competitions. Because another thing that we've been speaking about a lot is domestic cups cannot just be throwaways this season. A lot of Arsenal fans cope and say, what is the season finishing second and an FA Cup going to do for us? It's going to do a fucking lot. Because going trophyless season after season after season with a team that's never won a trophy themselves is not good practice. If you keep losing, you become a loser. So I think even just from that perspective, knowing that you can rotate in these cup competitions, but you have good players. Like I was talking to my friend about it yesterday. I was like, just by having like Ethan and Marino and adding Calafiori will help us in the cup competitions because we'll have better quality players that we can rotate with. Calafiori is the starter. You can play, Tomiyasu if he's fit, whatever, whatever. Marino playing at left center mid and Havertz not playing at left center mid in cup competitions will help us, or instead of ESR or whoever else the fuck was playing there, but we need the same in attack. We've went into cup competitions with like Trossard on the left, Fabio Vieira on the right, and Nketiah in the middle, or Reece Nelson. And those we're getting slapped and we're going out of these cups, So it's not just about the league. It can't just be, well, if they're not good enough to win us the league, we shouldn't buy anybody. There's more to fight for. I would honestly, you guys, I would take second in a FA Cup. I would take that at this stage. This team needs to win something. That's all I'm saying. Victor says, just because he scored a lot of goals against other 16-year-olds doesn't mean it's the next big thing. Eddie was breaking records. Are you guys talking about Cheeto? Y'all talking about Cheeto still? MM says, especially Mikel will trust set players. Alistair Ben says, how is Arsenal's attack average when we scored more goals than we ever had at 91 goals? Oh my gosh, how many times do we have to go through this? So I don't think our attack is average. I just don't think it's better than Liverpool's and Man City's. And I think depending on what other people do and what we do at the end of the transfer window, we're probably like the fourth or fifth best attack. A lot of what we do is dependent on our defense and our patterns of play and Arteta's coaching. But I guarantee if you look at Man City and Liverpool last season and the season prior, like they did not have as many games where they did not score a goal, especially at home. So the 91 goals that we scored, a lot of those were concentrated in a very small part of the season after Dubai, but we still had games where we looked toothless. And so it's not about, it's like people are so like basic with it. We scored 91 goals, so we have a really good attack. But we still have too many games where we're toothless. And so from my perspective, it's like we could still improve it quite a bit. We really haven't done much. We are a team that's good in the Premier League, but we've never won it. We haven't won it yet. We were okay in Champions League. We got out of our group. We really struggled against Porto. Again, we were toothless against them in both legs. We struggled against Bayern, a not so great Bayern side, and we're not getting out of any of the cup competitions well. So this whole idea that because we scored 91 goals in the Premier League, that our attack is really, really good or something, it doesn't add up. Like we're so in our infancy of like how good we need to be. This is Arsenal. We should be going far in all the cup competitions and winning leagues. So like 91 goals, what does that mean? Like we didn't score against Villa. We couldn't score against West Ham at home. Couldn't score against Liverpool at home in the cup. We couldn't score against Newcastle. Those are the games that matter. So what is the 91 goals? I don't get it. Every time somebody brings that up, I'm like, you're just missing the full point. I'm not saying that our attackers are bad. I'm not saying that they're shit. Somebody else said that they were average. I don't think that our attack is as good as we think it is. But hey, attack is fine. No big deal. We scored 91 goals. We didn't have the whole first half of the season where we couldn't really score from open play. Like, it's not it just needs we need something else. Like, I mean, and the club said as much. I think it was The Athletic that, reported that Arsenal feel like they need X factor in the Champions League. So, but maybe they don't feel like they can get it. Let's see what else is going on. Oh, some of these are like these like Fraz Fletcher and like these guys, they're not good sources. I don't know why people always report what they say because a lot of what they say is just like nonsense. Such nonsense. Leicester City are working on a deal to sign Zaha. So remember, Reece Nelson was supposed to go to Leicester, but they couldn't sign him. But they probably want somebody on loan, so that's why they didn't come for us or come for him. Reece Nelson is a hard sell, like I said. Like, yeah. Boy says people have been slagging off Kai for 12 months. Nuances of Fate says we don't even have a center forward. Victor says a lot of goals doesn't mean we don't need a striker, period. Compare our current attack to Liverpool, one of Mane, Salah, Firmino. They had a better attack, but scored less in their Premier League winning season. And I think there's just certain things that go around the fan base that are coping mechanisms. We scored 91 goals. Of course, our attack is good. We don't need anybody. It's fine to cope with the fact that Arsenal might not get an attacker, which would be egregious to do it twice, like in a row. There's these little things that kind of like seep into the fan base that are like coping mechanisms, but like simple, like look, we didn't we there's too many games where we look like we're not going to score. And a good team never looks like they're not going to score. They don't. It's like one game, maybe, where they look toothless. Like, but we had like seven that weren't even against the top teams. That's not even counting the Champions League games and the games at the Etihad and even at home against Man City. Because as much as people try to act like we won that game and we deserve to win it, but for the majority of that game, we didn't look like scoring. It took a deflected goal from Martinelli to get that over the line. So I just feel like people are being disingenuous, you know? But yeah. Bully says Wenger era we had Henri, Amelia? Van Persie, Arteta has Jesus. See the difference? We need Gyökeres, then buy Isak next season. Um, I I don't know if we need all that, but if we're waiting on Newcastle to sell us Isak to actually go out there and like improve the attack, like if it's just Nico Williams or nothing or Isak or nothing, we're leaving ourselves in a really vulnerable position. And but hey, Isak 2025. I hear what you're saying, Anelka. Um, the Arsenal perspective says if, like Mikel is always saying, it's about fine margins, we needed a different type of profile forward in those two games at Villa, West Ham, and Fulham matches. We just need players that can make something out of nothing. I think that's one of our bigger problems is when our patterns don't work or when we're not playing our best or, whatever. It's mostly when our patterns are not working, and we've exhausted the maximum we can get from our system. Our players that we currently have don't have the ability to create something out of nothing. And so it's not like it happens every game. We're talking about probably 5 to 7% of the games we're going to play all season. Like 92 to 95% of the games that we play in a season, we're going to dominate, our patterns are going to work, and we're going to score goals. But the 5 to 7% that we don't have a player that can create something out of nothing or somebody that we can just hoof the ball into and they'll figure out a way to get on the end of it. And so not having that player means that those games are and those are usually games that are the difference between us winning something or not. And so It is fine margins, but is that player only Isak? Is is it just Isak? It annoys me a little bit that I think that player was probably Kudus, and we didn't get him because we couldn't sell players that were still suffering to try to sell now. Like, you got to start getting rid of these players quicker. We got to start moving on good players quicker. You know, it's just Kudus is not a player that when he left Ajax and went to West Ham that anybody thought was, like this level raiser guy, but I just feel like if we woulda had somebody like him in those games, we wouldn't be having these same conversations because he creates things out of nothing, so that's all I'm saying, guys. It's like it's not about our attack being average. It's not about our players not being good. It's not about any of that. It's just there's a 5 to 7% of games where we look absolutely toothless because our patterns, we've exhausted everything that we can do from what we got. And so you just have to have somebody that can just have that little bit of magic, and we don't have it, so yeah, I don't know, it's just to me, it's not that hard to, like, really see, but I feel like some people are, like, actively trying to pretend like it doesn't exist and that, like, it's just fine. We just lost the league by 2 points, you know what I mean? But, um, yeah, maybe it's just that, maybe if we start off the season good this season, that none of these things will be a problem. I think we need a little bit of something different, but let's see. Aaron says, when it wasn't working and we were bringing on Eddie and Reese, that was frustrating. Um, yeah, I mean, there were games like that where we looked to our bench and it was like there was nothing there to change the game. We're pretty much like plan A, and if plan A doesn't work, unless if Trossard is already on the pitch, it's done. Like, you know what I mean? So, yeah, Shamaria says the club are willing to go for Sesko though. I think they're waiting for the next best opportunity to arise. And I mean, we did go after Sesko. Um, so maybe they are kind of willing to go after a striker. Um, and that would have cost us like 50 million. Maybe we do have a little bit available to us to go after an attacker, and we just have to move on Eddie first. But so let's see, what happens. There's still good players out there that we can go after. I know we want to make sure that the player is actually quality. I'm not just saying go out and get anybody, but there are players out there, so yeah. Brian Cooper says we have got a clutch player. He is called Trossard. You need more than one though. And Trossard even at times is not enough. Because again, Trossard was around when we didn't score against Villa, when we didn't score against West Ham. So it's still not enough. Um, if anybody who thinks that our attack is like this is just fine, I think you're going to come rude awakening. Adebayo says Trossard is very valuable to the team. Leroy Sané would be similarly valuable when he substitutes Saka on the right wing. Interesting. Sane falls in the category. He falls in that category with me of the Comans, the Rafinhas, and Sane, all older, experienced, play for Champions League level teams, and would play for us. I do feel like Arsenal fans are a little bit delusional too about, players from other teams from other leagues, the top teams, if they go through a bad period or something, none of their players could get into our team. So like no Barcelona players could get into our team, no Bayern players could get into our team. But we played against Bayern and like Sane ripped Kivior a new one. Like he absolutely annihilated him in that first leg. And that was all that they needed to get that draw, and really that sealed our fate in the Champions League, if we're honest, So Sane is still a quality player. Like Coman is a quality player, like Rafinha is a quality player. The thing, they're the types of players that I feel like, would make us better because obviously they're so much better than Eddie and Reece Nelson, but they're not gonna like lift the level like an Isak would. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be looking at those players. You know, I wouldn't want Coman in particular. I think he's too injury prone. Would I be excited by a Sane or Rafinha? No, but would I take them? Yeah, because I'm looking at Nelson and Nketiah come in games for Arsenal when we need something. So you know what I mean? Um, so yeah. Uh Arsenal perspective says Sane hasn't he lost a lot of his pace? He's definitely not as fast as he used to be. Aaron says Bakayoko. You guys know how I feel about Bakayoko. I was screaming from the rooftops after he another one that Rip Kivior. Um, he's a really, really good up and coming right winger. He's the type of player that a Liverpool would buy. He's the type of player that a smart team would buy. You know, he's too good to be at like a Bournemouth or something like that, but he's probably not like just come straight into our starting 11, but he's not so rough around the edges. He plays for a Champions League level team, and he's really, really good. Pacey, strong, has the physical attributes to be able to play in the Premier League and actually plays right wing and scores goals and gets assists. The only thing is like being able to convince him that Arsenal is the right project for him because there was already early reports that Bakayoko camp had concerns of whether we'd be the right place for him because Saka. Nobody like, he's 1 year, I think, younger than Saka, maybe 2, so it's not even like Saka is gonna get old tomorrow. When your main guy is 22 years old and he plays every minute of every game, you're not gonna get he's not gonna take Reece Nelson minutes. He's too good for that, so convincing somebody like him would be difficult, especially because I don't think he plays on the other side. So you can't even like tempt him with left wing minutes too. But if all of that was like not a thing, I would say go to PSV and offer them 30, 40 million for him and move on. Like he is so much better than Reece Nelson. Like yeah, so hello. Um, Victor says Bakayoko offers something different to Saka. He's more like Doku profile, and he would be a good option. He would be. Um, Arsenal perspective says I'm more than happy for right wing to be someone who isn't a finished article yet and can be more than what we currently have on the bench. It would just be like I don't see how Arteta could convince him because if there's one position in our team that would be a really difficult sell on a young player, it would be right wing. You would look at how Saka has been used. You would say he's been used like a bar of soap. He's a top 5 player in his position. He's also young. He's a top earner. He's our main guy. Where am I going to get my playing time? Because Arteta's not. He like I would love to believe that if Arteta got Bakayoko, early stages of cup competitions, games against like the lower half or the lower like bottom level 5 teams in the Premier League, he would trust him to like play some of those games. I don't think he would, so it's a hard sell. But if I woke up tomorrow and we were in advanced negotiations for Bakayoko, I'd be like, thank you. You can still improve without having to go get an ESAC because we quite literally have Reece Nelson, you know? Um, so yeah, I really wish he could play on both sides. Um, Mosquito says, "Hi Jess, I believe that Arsenal need a striker to add to the team, but then we wait for an official announcement regarding Marino, who seems to have slowed down a bit. I don't have any hope on a striker, if I'm honest. I think if the player comes, they'll play on the wing. I think Arteta is going to double down on Gabriel Jesus coming good as a striker, and it's going to be him and Kai, and that's it. So the space will come on the wing. Um, Marino will get done. It's just slowing down because we're trying to negotiate down to the penny. So I wouldn't get too down on that just yet. Bully says facts, but I don't want another ex-Man City player if you're talking about Sane. That's another thing. We're the only team that gets players from other teams and those players do not perform against their ex side. Like our players that we get rid of always perform against us, get a goal, something, you know. Um, but our players, when they play against their ex teams, they don't show up, So something City has like a mental block on this team. I think having their ex assistant coach and 2 players from their team that were like not good enough or whatever, it does that to a team, if I'm honest, but That's another reason not to want Sane. Adebayo says Arsenal badly need an out and out striker who can score scruffy goals, someone who will be in the box and win those tight games for them. Um, yeah, I just don't see us doing that. James says, break the bank for Osimhen. I think he'll end up at Chelsea at some stage. Ryan says Calafiori Marino will make either Martinelli or Trossard cook on the left flank, will be stronger. Even when Martinelli was good on the left flank and scored those 15 goals, we still felt the next summer that we needed another attacker. That's what I'm saying. People are like, oh, well, if Martinelli starts cooking again, it'll be fine. He cooked the first season that we tried to win the league, and we still ended up not winning it, and still went into the summer that we bought Declan Rice and Kai Havertz begging for an attacker. So no amount of left half space, like we can't, like, a new signing is not going to work for us here. Like, we need Martinelli to come good and Jesus to come good, but we also need to buy somebody on top of it. Like, there's no like a new signing is not going to work here. It's just not. Um, let's see. Mr. Happy says I heard he's injured. Who? Who's injured? Who's injured? Oh, Kai did perform against Chelsea. You're right. Kai and Trossard, but not Jesus. So, but yeah, you're right. They all perform against their ex teams. No one says the faith says when we're chasing games and Arteta subs on Eddie, I usually stop watching. I'm fucking dead. I stop watching, makes me die. That makes me die. I usually stop watching. Go out there. Go out. Go out with the nonsense. Go out. I'm still streaming. Go out with the nonsense. Stop playing. They're playing around over here. Uh-oh. Okay, let's see. Exclusive. Olympic Marseille sent a formal bid to Norwich for Jonathan Rowe. He's among targets for OM as talks took place on the player side and now also club to club. Let's see if Jonathan Rowe, what position he plays. If he's a forward, I'm just done. He's a forward. So, not sure how that's going to impact Eddie, but yeah. Bruh. Marseille just keep looking for forwards. It's like, just get Eddie, man. But did they get Makoko? Did they actually get Makoko, or did that fall through? Because they were talking about the Makoko deal and it just, like, nothing ever happened. El Clasic, Neves signing, while Roberto De Zerbi teaming up with because I know they wanted to buy 3 attackers because I think they lost 3 attackers. So maybe this isn't bad. Maybe it is. Yeah, I don't see anything about Makoko to Marseille, so maybe that fell through. So maybe this is the other option for Makoko, but they need to come get Eddie. I can't do this anymore. Like, oof, my God. So yeah, Simba says he is a winger, so maybe that helps us because he's not a striker. Okay, so Keenan says, I think they signed Makoko. They're pivoting to Eli Wahi as an alternative to Eddie. So maybe Eddie is still safe. Iran says, Romano said Eddie is not dependent on Makoko. I was just trying to confirm that this guy is not going to impact him. Adebayo says Isak may not be good next season, just like Osimhen dropped off form last season. I think Isak will be good, and honestly, I think Newcastle will be good again. They'll, if they don't get, because they were ravaged by injuries. Isak is a certified like elite striker. Like, it's done. He's not a flash in the pan. Isak is. They took the risk that we should have taken on him. And yeah, if you continue to let these talents go by and wait until they come to the Premier League so you can make sure you'll be priced out, because if they if Newcastle snuck into the top 4, which I'm not saying they will, but they'll definitely be fighting for European places, then there's no way we can get Isak. So banking on Isak in 2025 is just like stupid. We need to find our own Isak. Um, so yeah, Arsenal Perspective says Kivior to enter, good move for all. Is there any links? I'm hoping that Juventus missing out on Todibo will make them look at Kivior. Kivior needs to leave for a permanent deal, 20 million, at the least. Um, so yeah, we need to find our own Isak. Arsenal need to use their recruitment and find somebody that has the qualities that Isak has. We're not going to be able to buy him. Um, let's be serious. They'll never sell to us, and why would they? They view us as competition. And after they played for like 2 minutes, and then now they're back to going to sleep. Let's see. I'm looking for any Kiwior news because they like these Italian teams should be lining up, man. Kiwior, man. Oh man. Yeah, I don't see anything, but I believe that you saw it. Um, so yeah, let's see. Alistair Ben says King Kai will score 20 goals this season. He may. The question is not so much will he score 20 goals, but will he score important goals against City, Liverpool, games like that? Because he'll definitely score 20 goals. That's for sure. I think he will. Let's see. A couple more minutes, guys. Keenan says there's 1,000 of you guys in here. I imagine quite a few of you guys are watching on Twitter. Like I always say, I love that you guys are watching on Twitter. But you guys are freeloaders. Come so I can actually get paid for it. But yeah, welcome. Um, so yeah, Wisdom says not for sure. I think he'll like. Well, let's put it this way. I think Kai Havertz will have. I'm gonna go with 40 goal involvements for Kai. I think Kai will get 40 goal involvements. I think no, I I wrote it down. Kai 37 goal involvements. Saka 40 goal involvements. Odegaard 30 goal involvements. The rest of them, I have no fucking clue what they're gonna do. I have no clue what they're gonna do. I'll put it in the chat. 37 altogether goal involvement. So goal and assist. So you guys can do the split. Kai, 37 goal involvement. Saka, 40 goal involvement. And Odegaard, 30 goal involvement. The rest of them, like I said, I can't vouch for you. I can't vouch for you. I don't know what you're gonna do. So yeah. But I mean, people that are saying that they don't know if Kai can get like 20 goals. He did have 12 in half a season. So and he's scoring pretty well in preseason. So I don't know if it's that far fetched that Kai Havertz could score 20 goals. Like 20 goals is like I'm not saying it's like a small number, but it's not like insurmountable, especially for somebody that scored 12 in half a season. So um, it's not so much about I know that Kai Havertz is going to score quite a few goals. It's just if he's gonna be able to come up with the big goals in the big moments. He did in some games, but in other games he didn't. So um, yeah. I did hear about Bournemouth wanting Eddie as a replacement for Solanke. I just want somebody to fucking buy him. Somebody, anyone. Carol Keane says Martinelli Trossard. I know Trossard would score goals, but I don't really know what his goal. I don't know what it's going to be like. But I think Martinelli and Jesus are the biggest question marks going into next season about what is their goal involvement's going to look like. Is Martinelli's going to be closer to what we saw over the last the 2 seasons in between? Like, is it going to be the 15 or is it going to be less? Like, what is it going to be? And Jesus, I don't know. So the only people, like I said, I can vouch for are Odegaard, Kai, and Saka. Because at least Kai scores the scrappy, ugly goals too, the stinky goals. He does those too. So I think he'll get quite a bit. You're acting up. Come here. Come on. Oh. Hi. Keenan says, Jess, thoughts on Eddie Semenyo swap deal? Listen, I think, Semenyo is like one of those where when I'm watching him for Bournemouth, I'm like, oh, he's so good. Like, look at him. He's fast. He's strong. He's tall. But then can I imagine him at Arsenal going to the next level? I think there's not enough. There's not enough evidence. You know what I mean? I'd rather Bakayoko, to be honest, but is there rumors or are you making that up? Because I'd take him over nothing. Let's look at Semenyo's numbers. He's 24. Stop it. He had last season 8 goals and 2 assists. That's not too bad. That's not too bad. Antoine Semenyo, 24. He's like 5'11". He looks much taller than that. He looks much taller than that. I would have guessed he's like 6'1" or 2", to be honest. He looks huge. When I saw him in America, I was like, that guy's fucking huge. I would hate to have to run after him. His numbers aren't like that great, but then also he plays for Bournemouth, so I got to take that into consideration. But yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Aha says, will Bournemouth use the Solanke money to go for their former player Ramsdale or an Nketiah or Nelson? We should be trying to sell them both Nketiah and Nelson, but mostly Nelson because he has no prospects at the moment, But yeah, he seems to be getting better every season. Reminds me of Leao a couple seasons ago. So yeah. Yeah, I mean, Semenyo is out there choice. Yeah, we didn't really talk about Solanke to Tottenham, but I actually think that's a good signing for them. I actually thought they did the better thing. They didn't go for Tony. They went for Solanke, who I think is better. If I'm honest, 65 million seems like a lot, but I feel like we're not realistic about the market anymore. That 30 million gets you a very average guy now. 65 million is a good fee for a good striker. So that's actually a really good signing for them. Now the trickle down is like, will they come for Eddie or whatever? So let's see. But I don't want if Bournemouth aren't ready to spend the money and get the deal done in like a day or two, I don't want them disrupting the Marseille thing. But if they're willing to offer a little bit more, because then we know you have 65 million and you asked for 30 million up front, which is exactly what we need, right, Bex? 30 million up front, 30 million up front, 30 million up front, 30 million up front. I wish I could show you guys Bella too, but Bella is not wanting to be social right now. Let's see. Alistair Ben says, I wanted Solanke. That's a good signing for Spurs. Unfortunately, it is. Sai says, sorry, dog. I didn't mean what I said the other day. What did you? You said something about it. What'd you say? You said something, and I was like, I can't believe you said that. Because Bex is the best. So yeah. And Anta Dunn says, Nketiah will suit Bournemouth, so come get it done. And Justin says, just watch Gyökeres play. He's quite good. He scored and assisted. I told I'm tired of the Jokeris conversation because originally when we've been talking about him, people were like, "No, he's in the Portuguese league. He played for Coventry. Oh no, he doesn't have the physical capabilities. Oh, he's 26. I don't want him." Now that people are desperate, now they want him. He in like if he came to us, he would score 20 goals a season. Like it's not like to me, I would put money on it. He's exactly the type of striker that you'd want behind a Kai Havertz. He's like full Krug, but better. And that worked for Germany. Kai would start the games, but full Krug would come in and score, the goals when he couldn't score. That is the kind of dynamic you need when you have a striker like Kai Havertz who has moments where he's not as clinical. He's a good all arounder. He does a lot of good things, but he's not clinical. You have to have somebody that's like a real like bagsman behind him. And Jokeris also has other things to his game too, because he has quite a few assists. Arsenal have decided to have two not clinical number nines and to not move Jesus on, which I understand some of that is like, would anybody want him? Could we get a fee for him? Whatever, but it's just poor squad building. After Jesus, a clinical forward should have came in. We should never like buying Kai Havertz makes no sense when you already have Jesus because now you have two non-clinical strikers. You don't have room to bring in somebody like a Jokeris, but that doesn't mean I don't like the players. It just I don't like the squad building. Because I feel like it's imbalanced. You need somebody that you can. If we had Jokeris and Kai or Jokeris and Jesus, I think we'd feel pretty confident going into next season because, everything would kind of be done. Um, but yeah, that's just me. That's just me. Sean says, I'll be honest. I still want Santi Jimenez, but I can't see us putting up that kind of scratch late in the window with no release clause in play. I agree with you. I agree. Lib 231 Gunner says we desperately needed a striker. Reason why we missed out on the league twice. Yeah. I can't see it. Oh yeah, you said buy rat dog or something like that. My baby does not look like a rat. He is a little prince and he's adorable. Um, that's my baby. There's no perspective says, come on now. We've been talking about yokers for 6 months on this channel. We have, and the first time I said that we should go get him, I was met with a lot of pushback. And now it's like people are like, well, we should just go get him. It's like, I mean, we can't just go get him. Like, I try to be as realistic as possible. You could squad build like Chelsea and have problems down the line. My biggest issue is we can't do the things that Chelsea does in the market where they just continuously buy because they also continuously sell and have a good track record of selling players too. But we don't sell well, so we can't buy like that. Because some people are like, just go out and buy him, it's fine, like we'll just deal with it later. But we don't sell well enough to risk like a transfer ban for something like that. So that's why we're one in, one out. We have to actually know that we're selling someone in order to bring someone in because I don't think we trust ourselves. We don't trust it, so I'd love to just be able to bring in Jokeris, even though we have Jesus and Kai Havertz. But I said this early on that Kai Havertz is going to impact our ability to bring in a top quality striker because the squad space and the wages won't be available unless you get rid of somebody. And nobody's going to come get Jesus from us. So it's all like, it's the same thing with like Partey. You don't sell Partey, no Bruno Guimaraes comes in. It's gone. It's done. We have Jorginho, we have Partey, and you have Declan Rice that can all play DM. As much as people believe that we should just give, whatever it takes to get Bruno Guimaraes, we can't do it. So the spot has to be available. It's one in, one out. And so keeping players around impacts your window if you're Arsenal. We don't have the ability to have 41 people on the books, we have like the least amount of people on our books right now, if I remember correctly. So why don't you leave Bella alone? I want to see if you guys want to see Bella. Hold on. I couldn't get her. Bex chased her away. I couldn't get her. Let's see. Shamaria says breaking from Team News and Ticks Mikel Moreno to Arsenal will be done next week. I mean, I would hope so. I would hope so. Space Time says Arsenal don't even need much. One more elite attacker and we're golden. Our sales should sanction that at least. So hopefully we get that done. I'm still hopeful. But you know, you just never know with Arsenal because we always kind of leave something hanging during a window, So if we were able to get an attacker, I'd be like, wow, we actually addressed everything that we pretty much needed. Beginning of the window, it was left back, midfield, attacker, So that would mean that we pretty much got all of that done. Then we will have promoted. Hopefully, I know Winery, Ethan, is going to be promoted and is going to play a role. I wonder if we're going to send Lewis Skelly out. I don't want us to. I don't think we should, but I would love to keep him in the squad. But those two, those are definitely like a new signing. Them two are like a new signing. They are. Like, they have saved, like, they give me joy. The joy that I get watching those two boys play, like, it feels like watching Saka for the first time again. And they're actually really good. So yeah. Look at this. Juventus have Sterling on their list. If they're able to sell, this is what I'm saying. Chelsea can always sell their players. They'll get 30 million for Sterling and get him off their books. We can't do that. So we can't just keep, buying. So, and Keenan says, if we sell Kivior, MLS will stay in the first team. Sell Kivior. So mostly because he's not going to play and he will lose so much value sitting on our bench for another season. So yeah, sell Kivior. I don't know what we're going to do about Ramsdale. That is so far down. Like, I don't, people want loans, like dry loans for Ramsdale. So Kivior, Nketiah, Reece Nelson, let's start there and see what we can do. So yeah. But yeah, let's go ahead and get out of here. We've been talking for 2 hours, which is longer than I wanted to, but it's just random or whatever. Make sure you guys, the link is pinned in the description box. And it's not pinned in the description box. It's pinned in the chat for you guys to RSVP to the watch alongs. I have like 5, one for Leon, and then for like the first 4 games of the season. So you guys can actually go ahead and just RSVP for all of them because you should. And the code is Jessica, JESSICA, to join. And so we will start an hour prior to the Lyon game. So to do pre-match stuff or whatever. So make sure you guys are there. Oh, got a late super chat from Brian. Thank you so much. Brian says, I think Kai is a great player and has shown himself to be worth the money so far. But do you think it was a mistake to buy him? This is why I think everything is nuanced and there's a lot of gray area in conversations, because I like Kai and I think he's, like you said, he's proven himself to be a good player in Arsenal. And so it is what it is. He actually would be the player that I'd start at the 9 at the beginning of the season. I think he's earned that position. That being said, if I could go back to last summer and not buy him, I still would not buy him. I would have bought Kudus, or I would have bought a left center mid. I would have solved one of the problems that we still have this summer, or we went into this summer still with question marks over. 65 million is a lot of money to just spend on a player that didn't really solve either one of our problems. Because even with Kai here, we still feel like we need a striker and we still feel like we need a midfielder. So it's so hard to say, because I know somebody screaming, he was like our player of 2024. Look at him. He's went up so many levels. But I still wouldn't have purchased him. I still would have gave the money to Ajax for Kudus, because we would have bought the attacker that we needed. And this summer, maybe all we needed to do was buy the left center mid. and maybe we could have spent a little bit more on it or, whatever. So yeah, I feel really pretty comfortable saying that. And I think I've said that quite a bit. I don't think he solved any of the major things that would be the difference between us winning trophies or not. I think he makes us a different team, but not so much like a way better team than the team that we were before we bought him. And so it's tough to say. I hate saying it. You know what I mean? Because it's like people think, oh, you hate him. I did not like him until he started playing good, you know? Um, but if I could go back in time and spend 65 million on somebody else, I would, you know. Um, so yeah. And Daniel Constant, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, nice shirt. What does it say? You like cruising? This is actually not my shirt. This is my mom's shirt. It says the Smooth Jazz Cruise. My parents go on that cruise every year. And so I'm at my parents' house right now babysitting these two dogs because they're actually on vacation now. And so I just wear my mom's like shirts because I didn't feel like packing shit. So this is actually my mom's shirt. So shout out mom if you're watching this. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. But make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, click on that link, RSVP to the watch along for Sunday. And I will see you guys there. And that's probably the next time you guys will see me unless there's some breaking news. But you freeloaders on Twitter, come over to YouTube so I can actually get paid for your guys' views. But either way, thank you for tuning in and I love you guys. Bye, y'all.